Dead by Daylight has a grind problem. Even Behavior admitted this 2 years ago during a Q&A live stream, which I will link later on in the video, and in the description below if you'd like to watch it for yourself. I'm sure this isn't news to anyone, but I wanted to do the math and see just how bad it is. Needless to say, it's pretty awful. This affects all players, and no players more than those that are fresh to Dead by Daylight. I oftentimes see people say, oh, the longtime players don't have it that bad, they've got a head start. Yeah, while that is true, they've had extra BP, tomes, events, rifts, etc. They still have quite a bit of grind if they have the goal of P3 every survivor, killer, both. Even more so if they're aiming for the P6 and P9 rewards, on top of wanting to get to P100. Now imagine how bad it is for someone who just started Dead by Daylight. It's a pretty daunting task just to get a main up and running and just going for the meta perks or the few perks you'd like to run. Honestly, I don't think there's any other game that has one that is this egregious. It's very clear this is an outdated system, and when we had 4 killers and 5 survivors, it was fine for the most part. It's still grindy, but still doable if you play consistently. And not only that, but they eventually did end up doing a minor adjustment to it and making the grind a little bit easier, and that's where we got Legacy from. However, we now have 36 killers and 42 survivors versus the original 3 killers and 4 survivors. You could argue the grind is now actually harder than the original one. It's only going to get worse considering the 3-month release cycle, as well as the intermittent paragraph releases in between. With each of these, that's just more and more to unlock and grind. I'm going to go into the math and talk about how insane it is to level up in DBD and reach those goals. I'll also leave a timestamp, so if you'd rather just skip over the math discussion and look at the solutions and ideas I have, then you can just click down below. I'm going to get into the math now. Real quick, before I get into this, I want to note that obviously now we have archives, dailies, rifts, codes, ranks, resetting, and we also have the off newsletter code, we have the new store gifts. We got a lot of different ways to get, free BP essentially. Now, I'm basing my math off of a casual player getting roughly 1 million blood points a day. Obviously you can get more, but even then cutting the grind in half would take roughly a year at 2 million blood points a day, so let's get into it. As I said before, there were 36 killers and 42 survivors. A total of 78 characters as of patch 8.0.0, with another survivor paragraph coming from a month after the D&D chapter, which I'm not factoring all this. This is only going to be going up to patch 8.0.0, and that's it. I'm not going to be doing the upcoming patches or character inclusions, even though we know what we're getting. I'm just going to keep it focused on the D&D chapter right now. That gives us 234 teachables and 27 general perks, with killers having 160 perks including general perks, which they have 13. Survivors have 182 perks with general perks, which they have 14. Now that many perks might not seem all that bad until you factor in that each perk has 3 ranks, as well as most requiring prestiging a specific character for non-general perks to unlock them on the others. If your goal is to unlock all the perks on everyone, then you have 783 levels without general perks. 864 with. That is an insane amount of leveling you'd have to do, and with caps and an average of, let's say, 20-30k a match, this could take a while. For reference, the prestige costs about 1 million to 1.3 million, depending on your web RNG and how well you level, how your web gets munched. Just to unlock all those perks would cost 78 million blood points. That's P1 on everyone, and if you include the tax of 20k per prestige, you'd have to add on an extra 1.56 million BP on top of it. Assuming 1 mil per day, that'll take you roughly 80 days to complete. In that time, a new chapter paragraph would be dropped. You'd have to P1 the new characters. Usually if it's a paragraph, you get 1 character. If it's a chapter, you can get 2 or 3. So to catch up to that, you'll have to finish the grind on them, which is another 1 to 3 million plus tax. So you could argue it's going to be about 80 to 83 days to actually complete this within that time span. If we add all this up to the highest prestiges that still grant rewards, which is P6, P9, the numbers jump significantly. To get every character in Dead by Daylight to P6 for bloody cosmetics, it would cost you 460 million blood points, with just over 9 million blood points in tax alone. To get P9 for the pimp charms, that's 702 million with a whopping 14 million BP plus tax. That would take you close to 2 years to finish, and that's just factoring everything up to the D&D patch. Within 2 years, we would see, at minimum, 4 full chapters, that includes 2, sometimes 3 characters, and could be any number of paragraphs. We're getting 2 solo drops the next coming months alone. Now, there are a few discounts along the way, of course, but they don't really dent the more lofty goals of P6, P9, or even P3, to be fair. I'm going to be generous and say the Archive plus Rift gives you 1 million blood points each. I'm 99% sure that they're under that number, but for the sake of the argument, I'm going to go with 1 million for each, for a total of 2 million every time you get a new one, which is every month and a half. I'd like to also note that levels are also locked, so you cannot just jump in and soak up all the BP offered in the Archive or the Rift. It's going to take a while to finish. One, because it's time gated. Two, because you have to level up the Rift, and that's going to take a couple games, well, quite a few games actually. On top of that, we also, of course, have the rank reset. So assuming you're Eerie 1 every month, that's an extra 2 million for a 24 million BP bump over the course of 2 years. That's assuming you hit Eerie 1 every month for 2 years, non-stop, 24 million BP. With the Rifts in the Archives, that's another 16 million BP, so you're looking at roughly 40 million blood points extra over the course of 2 years. On top of those, you also get the rare BP event. The 3 times Blood Feast we had recently was the first one since 2017, I believe. So they're not consistent enough to rely on. We also get the off EP code every once in a while, which I think also falls into the unreliable category. Anniversaries are a great time to stock up on the current 108 cakes or flan or tier, whatever they're going to decide to do this year, assuming you start on the D&D chapter, and that could be a significant boost to grinds, but again, you would have to start during the anniversary to start collecting those cakes and build up a nice little nest egg for the rest of the year. Now, I'm going to get more into the offerings later in the solutions portion of the video, and there's going to be a little tag. You can just skip ahead of that if you like, just to skip over the boring math. Last but not least, out of the the BP bumps, we also have dailies, which you can only get 1 per day, and they range from 30k to 45k to 60k. 9 times out of 10, you're only going to get a 30k daily, which is basically a single match for the BP, assuming you have a good match. This is especially rough for Survivor, but I'll talk about that later. Now, they sometimes do a double BP daily deal, which is nice, but that's, again, 2 to 4 matches worth of BP, assuming you get 360Ks. That's only 180K, or up to 360 if you get really lucky. But I've only seen one person actually get 3 120K dailies. I'm like 90% sure it was a bug and he wasn't supposed to have 3 more dailies, but the entity praised him, apparently. Basing this off my BP amounts over 8 years of playing, I'd say a solid match as Survivor, I can usually get 20 to 25k, and as Killer, I can usually get 25 to 35k. So I use a nice round 30k average. While I do appreciate the cap being increased to 40k, it's not impossible to get a perfect game anymore. Most incredible games where you do just about everything right and get all the points, you're probably going to be hovering around 35k. This also, of course, excludes matches where you get tunneled out, or on the reverse, you just have an awful game and don't get many hooks. We're aiming for 1 million BP, and thankfully I have tons of cakes, puddings, flans, you name it, so I rarely go into a match without a 100% offering. If you don't have these offerings, it'd take roughly 33 matches to get 1 million BP, assuming no offerings were burnt. 16 with 1, and obviously much less if people aren't being stingy. However, from my experience, sadly, most people don't bring BP offerings at all, and newer players won't have the luxury of having the 100% or even good offerings, when they start. Let's talk about the time now. The lobby wait times, ignoring queue times, assuming 33 plus matches, you've already spent 34 minutes just waiting. Most matches can go on for about 5 to 10 minutes, sometimes longer, but for the sake of the argument, we'll go with those. That'd be about 3 hours for consistent 5-minute matches, and about 6 hours for 10-minute matches plus lobby times. That time adds up, especially for a more casual player. Not to mention burnout, if you have some rough matches, and a lot of other factors. I'd like to note here that the aforementioned BP increases will drastically reduce this time. If anyone tries to say, oh, but what about streamers in the Rift? And I got you covered. I'll also that you can drastically reduce your BP gains if you're able to go with a solid Swift with multiple BP offerings. I think that's probably one of the fastest ways to get BP is either Killer during the incentive with streamers, or just a 4-man Swift burning 4 streamers. That's probably the best BP gain you're going to get. And I hear you saying, CT, what if I just want to pick a main and get the meta perks on them? Well, I'll tell you. I'm going to be using nightlight.gg, which is a great site for DBD information, and I'll have that linked below in the description as well. All the info is from players uploading their matches, and it's all calculated and easy to find. Highly recommend using the site. You get some insight on how you've been playing, and a lot of other good stuff. Non-sponsored promo aside, I have a list of the top 10 perks for both sides. Now, for this, I'm only going to be using Killer perks. The reason I'm doing that is because both Killer and Survivor, if we factor in the top 10 perks, it's the same math both ways. It's 7 Survivors you would have to prestige. So, with that out of the way, The top 10 perks for killers are Barbecue, Bamboozle, Corrupt, Lethal, No-Id, Nowhere to Hide, Pop, Scourge Trick, Pain Res, Surge, and Sloppy Butcher. 2 of these perks are general, so no need to prestige. However, the others do require paid DLCs, and I'm not going to talk about the cost of getting started in DBD, but that'll be another video. Right now, I just want to talk about the leveling. Now, those killers include Artist, Clown, Demogorgon, Knight, Leatherface, Nemesis, and Plague. To unlock those perks, you'd have to prestige all of them at least once. That's roughly 7 million BP plus a 140k tax. That's just the prestiges alone. If none of those killers you've chosen, or none of those killers are ones you've chosen to main, you'd then have to pick another killer or start leveling up another killer just to unlock the perks that you just unlocked. Now, you did it. You bought the packs and prestiged the killers. Now you need those perks on the main. Doing the math, you get 50 perks per prestige. Up until level 24, you get 1 perk per web. Then from 25 to 39, you get 2 perks. However, as soon as you grab a perk, the entity will automatically eat the other perk. There's no way to avoid this outside of a bug or pure luck, but it just automatically eats the other perk. Now, this can be a bit helpful and save you some BP while you're leveling. However, it does slow down actually obtaining the perks. Now, from 40 to 49, you get 3 perks per web, which allows you to grab 2. Just make sure you're careful, as sometimes the web can be in a way that could cost you that second perk. I can't tell you how many times I was leveling, and I was going for a perk, and it just happened to munch and shoot up and take my perk, so I had to do a couple extra levels, and it's a pain. Once you hit 50, you get access to 4 perks, but the entity will automatically eat 2, then you have to prestige, and you're back to 1 perk per web again until you level up. Now, before I continue, I'm fully aware you could just pick 4 perks and call it a day, but people like variety, and some killers don't mesh well with some perks, such as M2 killers and Sloppy. Yeah, you can use it, but most of the time you'll be using your power with Sloppy, which Sloppy doesn't work with. Moving on, it would take you 8 prestiges in 2 levels, plus 160k tax to get all those perks on that main, including general perks, because I'm lazy and I don't feel like factoring them out. In total, that's 15 prestiges just to get 1 killer up and running with a couple perks to run. That's 15 million BP plus 300k tax. 15 plus days just to get started is kinda nutty, especially for a new player who doesn't have a lot of offerings or experience. This is also just 1 killer. You would still need to do this on the survivor side as well, and for any other mains you have. Considering all that, imagine if you got a new main, or a new killer comes out that you really like and you want to play, or even a survivor. You'd have to either level them up and pray you got the perks you wanted early, or you'd have to go grind out P3s on those 7 killers, or more if you wanted some variety. Once again, this is brutal for new players. I'd imagine some people will end up feeling trapped by the grind and not branch out and try new things like they'd want to, or they're just going to quit because they don't feel that the grind is worth it. Which is kind of sad, because there's a lot of fun stuff to do and play in the game. So, next up we're going to come up with some loot. Sorry, I have a problem with talking over myself. I think faster than I talk, so forgive me. We're going to get into some... I said I did it again. We're going to get into some solutions and some ideas I have to fix the blood point grind. Alright, let's talk about the solutions. Now let me preface this by saying that these are my opinions and my opinions alone, okay? That's all they are. They're just opinions. Feel free to disagree, add your own ideas, just keep it civil. The DBD community is far too quick to just be childish and throw out an insult without actually adding anything constructive to the argument. I would much rather hear why you don't like an idea than just, oh, you're a stupid fat doodle poo-poo head. Like, no one cares. You just look like an idiot, okay? So please just keep it civil and discuss what you like or don't like, okay? Thank you. Now, I have a few solutions that I'd like to discuss. The first one, making perks 1 tier. I'm going to play a clip from previous Q&A regarding the removal of perk tiers, then I'm going to discuss it afterwards.
Hidden Blade, Lexicat, Jimbo Mason, and Iana Bean. They all ask, are there any changes underway for Bloodweb to reduce the grind for perks?
Yeah, I mean, we've known that the grind is a big issue in DBD, and we know it is right now. It's not much fun. It's not much fun. It's a pretty big grind. We're working on a way to dramatically improve this. And we'll hopefully have more to say about it soon, but not right now. I know everybody loves that answer.
Yeah. One thing that we've seen people ask is if the grade rewards are like a band-aid solution to that. They're not. We're not looking at that as a solution to the grind. That's just an increase to the grade rewards. Nothing more. We have a related question from Astrian, who asks, can we please have perk tiers removed?
Good question. Straight up, we've got no plans to remove perk tiers. It is a topic that we talk about internally. It's an idea that gets thrown around, but we have no plans to do it right now.
Yeah, we have something else in mind, but not removing perk tiers. Two quick things about perk tiers. Yes, it would cut the grind in 2/3, but the grind grows exponentially every time new content is added. Not only are we adding new perks to unlock, but we're also adding more characters to unlock those perks on. So if we were to do so, it would only be a matter of time before that grind becomes a problem again. The second thing is that it's actually a lot more work to remove the perk tiers than just deleting them. And so if we're going to spend a bunch of time on a solution, we'd rather spend that time on a permanent solution, not something that's only going to be effective for a little while.
Yeah, absolutely.
Removing perk tiers would mean we'd get 3 to 9 perk levels per chapter. 9 to 27 levels is the current one. This grind, as they stated, would be cut by 2/3. That is a massive change to the grind, and in my opinion, worth the work. I feel that any solution they add would take work, and this would fix an outdated system. The game doesn't have only 7 characters anymore. The grind to keep people going isn't really needed. A better grind would actually drastically improve new player retention and even encourage players new and old to try other killers and perks. During a Reddit AMA, if I recall correctly, I can't find it, so take this with a grain of salt. They stated that removing perk tiers would mean you couldn't find perks in the Blood Web anymore, and that's part of the fun. I counter with offerings, add-ons, items, etc. Like, there's a lot of stuff in the Blood Web, not just perks. In fact, I would argue perks are what you want to get out of the Blood Web the fastest. Not to mention, once you prestige level enough, perks disappear anyway. Like, they're gone forever until a new chapter drops. Regardless, leveling Blood Webs isn't fun. It can take upwards of 10 to 15 minutes to dump 1,000,000 blood points if you're not using the auto level system, which I don't, because I want the cheapest webs possible, and I want my blood points to stretch out as much as I can. And even with the auto level, it barely saves a couple minutes, and it costs you more BP. People have done the math, it's not worth it. My next solution would be to add... Alright, that's... My next solution would be to add barbecue and wiggle lift bonus percentages to the base game. Killers can get up to 8 tokens for 200%, survivors can get 2 tokens for 100%. I want to clarify the reason killers get 8 tokens is to encourage going for fresh hooks and help alleviate tunneling camping, as this bonus would require a hook, not a hook state. Survivors get 2 for 100% to prevent people from fighting over unhooks, as this has happened in the past, and it can be a bit of a pain. These bonuses would also stack with any other BP offerings and work the same way. Would also like to add, if 200% skews the player base too hard, this could be dropped down to 4 for 100%, but I honestly don't think that would be an issue. Alongside that, I stand by both sides just need BP gains increased in general, especially for Survivor. Having a bad game as a killer, you can usually get a solid 10 to 20k. Bad game as Survivor, you can be looking at a fat 3k BP, and that's an entire brown add-on. Oh baby. And for this, I'd say either double or even triple BP base gains. Just straight up triple. Maybe even quadruple. I'm feeling frisky. I'd go for quadruple. At least then getting a bad match wouldn't feel like a total loss. The 4 times BP event and the 3 times BP events were amazing, and I would not argue with them being base. That was the only time it really felt like you were able to make a dent in the grind, and it was incredible. Ironically, I think the 4 times BP event, as good as it was, really highlighted just how awful BP gains are and how bad the grind is currently, so that's kind of funny. I know all across social media, people were begging for 4 times BP to be made base kit or just never go away. Because honestly, 4 times BP felt like it matched the grind. It felt as though with that much gain, you could reliably level up your characters. Even for new players, it probably would have been amazing. Like, imagine how fast they would have been able to catch up. I think that was just, man, I missed it. That really felt like a really solid level of gains to level. Regarding the previous change, would be to increase the caps in general. 40k was nice, but again, you're lucky if you can get around 25 to 35k in the best match of your life. Let's be honest, getting beyond 35k is pretty difficult, if not nigh impossible, just because of how the scored events work. So it's not even a 40k increase so much as a 35k increase. And 5k match is not a lot. I'm sorry, it's just not going to make a big difference in the grand scheme of things. It's appreciated, it's just Not a lot. I'd love for the base gains to be increased and the caps to hit something like 25k each for categories for a total of 100k. Especially given some categories are extremely difficult to actually get, mainly for survivors, that being survival, with very few ways of scoring outside of escaping, self-healing, unhooking, wiggling out, or a killer-specific interaction that gives next to no points. And fun thing is, after you do get the points from the killer action, you either get capped at 50 points every time you do it again, or you just stop earning points for it altogether. Which doesn't make a lot of sense in my opinion. Not to mention, you're not getting out every match, so an easier way to gain those points, or just get more in general, would be absolutely lovely. Now, I want to add a quick addendum onto upping the caps. This is also like a mini solution. I would love that once you cap out a score category, the points would just spill over into your other categories. And you can even make it so you get half the score event going into another category. So let's say rescuing your survivor is 1,000 points, right? Most of your categories are capped. Survival's looking a little low. Boom, here's 1,000 for survival. And with that being mentioned too, I'd also like to add that I feel like there should be more multi-score events. Rescuing a survivor, is altruistic, but it's also survival, because the more people in the match, the more likely you are to survive. That's a teammate. They help keep you alive. So I would also love just more double score events, multiple score events from multiple categories that are relevant to the action that you're doing. Picking up a slug should be survival plus altruism, taking hits should be altruism plus bold. I think that is altruism plus bold. I think popping a generator and working on that should be altruism plus, or not, should be objective plus survival. There should be just more survival point gains in general. Off the top of my head, yet another one is a BP token reward for hitting a devotion level. You get a devotion level and you get a token you can either save or use to get 200% bonus blood points for, let's say, 2 weeks. That sounds fair. As long as it's not purchasable in the shop, I think this would be a great addition and a good reward for devotion that could help out a lot with the grind. Speaking of devotion and leveling, the Rift is another great addition for bonus BP. A quick addition to the Rift would be to make the levels infinite and just give, let's say, 100k BP bonus every single time you leveled after completing the Rift. Now, I'm fully aware that the current rewards in the Rift range from 5 to 20k, but with my changes, they would naturally be increased as well. Going off of that as well, another one you could do is gain BP percent bonuses based off your current prestige from 1 to 100. This would be a nice reward for showing your dedication to a killer or a survivor, and lets you gain a sizable bonus when you play them to either dump more points on them or level up other ones you maybe want to get perks prestiges on, or even P100 next. That'd be great. I've got my Fung to P64. I would love to burn an offering for 100% and then gain an extra 64%. It's another tangible reward for leveling up your characters beyond the charms and the bloody outfits and the perks. So it would just be a constant reward that also helps fix the grind. Earlier in the video I mentioned offerings before, and I have an idea for those as well. This would not only help with the grind, but it would also help clean up the inventory. They could condense the add-ons to 25, 50, 75, and 100% from brown to purple rarity. Let's be honest, streamers are already pretty rare. They definitely do not feel like a green rarity add-on, and the abundance of add-ons, items, and offerings, namely map offerings that are green, just add more to the pool of what could spawn, further increasing their rarity. With this change, a new player would have access to percent BP boosts earlier, as well as other players who also have a limited pool of offerings. In addition to this change, it also makes it so you don't feel so disappointed when you burn a streamer and you see 4 laurels, an envelope, a cake, and other offerings that are just solo offerings. With the offerings working for everyone and being condensed, everybody wins. Speaking of previously mentioned dailies, it'd be such an amazing change if dailies went back to the old 125, I think it was 120k or 125k to 200k dailies for Amori we had in the past, as well as if we could get 3 dailies per day. They're called dailies, not dailies, so it'd be nice. They removed the higher point dailies, stating that they wanted dailies to be able to be completed within a single match. That's fine, but the point gains we currently have are again a single solid match. Not to mention some of the dailies are really obnoxious and you might take multiple matches to get them done anyway, such as open an exit gate, or open gate as so-and-so, or escape as so-and-so, or get item and escape. Like, the point gains on dailies are just a little wonky in my opinion, and I feel like we would do well to have the bigger dailies back. So that'd be nice. I'd be absolutely fine with the complete in a single match style dailies, but let's just get them back like 100k plus per daily. That way we can have really solid dailies that incentivize people to, you know, play new characters, play new killers, and it would still be done in a single match, and you would see a significant BP boost for doing them as well. We've also already seen that they can toggle double BP on daily, so I feel like this one would be a rather easy one to add. Something that's been requested often and is seen in many other games, and I'm really shocked Paper hasn't done, is BP events. It would be so nice if every weekend we just got a BP boost, be it 200, 300, or even 400%, however many they'd like to do. It would be a great incentive for people to play, and it helps the grind. We see that they can just turn them on and off as well, so this wouldn't be too difficult to just kind of add it as a normal thing. You could do every weekend, and then on the last week of the month for the entire week, so that those who can't play on the weekends or are busy with work or other obligations can also get a nice bonus. My last idea I have is one that I've been pitching for 3 to 4 years now. I'm not sure how long ago I came up with this idea, but the last idea I have is what's called the Entity Recycler. Now, Rust has a system like this where you take an item you don't want, you shove it in the recycler, and boop, it spits out components. Same thing would happen Dead by Daylight. You'd have, I don't know, 6 to 9 slots. It could be like a little furnace or like a crusher or something, or it could be like a big entity claw. It comes down and crunches your items with entity claws around it. I think that would look really cool personally. But just for the sake of an example, let's say I don't like using syringes. I don't use anything that's too crazy add-on or offering wise. I hardly ever use add-ons on killer. It's just a personal preference, which means a lot of stuff gets wasted unless I'm collecting. So using the syringe, we pop it in there, we hit recycle, and then boom, we get 2,500 blood points back. So you put your item in, and you would get half of whatever offering or item or add-on that you crunched back as a BP reward. Now, you could do this upwards of however many you want. There would be a cooldown or anything like that. Like I said, there would be multiple slots. So you could drag in, I don't know, 100 of these map offerings, 200 of these add-ons you're never going to use, I don't know, 500 of this map offering that you're never going to use. This would be really nice to just get rid of things in our inventory that we're never going to use. And it's especially good for someone who's maybe leveling up a killer or a survivor that they don't want to play, but maybe they wanted their perks. So they have all these offerings and items on a killer or survivor they don't really want to play. This mainly applies to killer. And they can take all that, recycle it, and then put those points into who they do want to play. So not only would this also be a grind fix, but this also makes you feel, I'm not sure what the word I'm looking for is. It feels like the blood points are less wasted. You know, it's not as if you dumped a bunch of points into a specific character, like, well, I'm never going to play them, so those blood points are gone. But hey, at least I got my perks, you know? So it fixes a few problems that I think would be really cool to see. Alright, wrapping this up, I want to talk about the BP economy. They've mentioned this in the past, and I believe it was mainly about players prestiging new killers / survivors too quickly, which I honestly don't understand. These days, people hit P3 plus off banked BP, and the more hardcore players would get P9 within the day, if not the next day. Some even get every character in the chapter P9 within a couple of days. I'm not sure if they stated they also worry about people hoarding items, but at this point with P100 being the thing, there are players out there with literal thousands of add-ons, items, and offerings. Not to mention, we don't lose anything from prestiging anymore, so hoarding is naturally going to happen. So I think we could probably raise the BP max as well. Shooting a quick number, I'd say from 4 mil to 10 million would be a good range. How about the rank reset? If I can manage to get Eerie 1 on both sides, I'm going to get Atri and Vecna to P2 right off the rip. So I'm pretty sure it's Atri, I'm not sure how to say it. You know, y'all can yell at me in the comments. Granted, I'm fully aware of the new prestige system. They need to level up new characters to get perks on them isn't the same as it was in the past, and I'm thankful to behavior for this change. It's honestly one of my favorite changes. That being said, I don't think a bump would really hurt. They're going to get those P9s fast anyway, so let's go nuts. Let people show off the bloody cosmetics early in their matches. Let people show off the pimp charms. Let's have some fun. I know some people will say some of my changes seem extreme, and I get that. However, I'm not looking at this as a veteran player. I'm looking at this from the perspective of a new player who will have to slog through all those levels and will essentially be stuck permanently catching up. For a vet like myself, this will allow me to switch up who I play. At the moment, I'm working on P100 Fung and P100 Unknown. I have everyone P9+, Fung is sitting at 64, Unknown at 20. I admittedly wasted some prestiges on some killers I don't play much anymore, but that's besides the point. With my changes, I could reliably get Fung and Unknown to P100, then I could actually dump points in other survivors I play, such as Claudette, Nia, Kate, Serena, Sable, etc. As it is right now, I basically do my challenges, do my dailies, and just dump everything into one survivor. Granted, I do play pretty casually about 3 hours a day on my stream, but even if I didn't, the grind would still be egregious. I want to be able to pick other survivors, but I also don't want to go into a match without a cake or a streamer, because again, grind bad. I would love to be able to just pump through levels, get some items and offerings, feel comfortable swapping on my mains. A man can dream, right? I'm not going to pretend as though some of these don't seem extreme. Bumps to fix the grind. The reason I'm going so high is to not only compensate for new players trying to get into Dead by Daylight, but the fact we're going to get many more in the future. By going a bit hard in the paint, you can counteract the previous point of the grind simply getting worse as more gets added. I'm sure some will say, oh, but then we'll have a bunch of P100s. Who cares? I see multiple P100s at night. Some people have 10 plus already. I believe we're past the honeymoon stage. It'd be fine. Anyway, with all that, I just want to say thank you for watching the video. I hope you enjoyed it. Be sure to like and subscribe if you want to see more videos from me in the future. If you didn't like it, feel free to drop a dislike. You know, it's a free site. Do whatever you like. Feel free to drop your suggestions, ideas, or arguments down in the comments below. I'd love to read them. I don't know if Beaver will watch this or if they do, if they would implement any of these ideas, but here's hoping. If they are watching, hey, thank you for your time, the current improvements, and I hope some of these can inspire some changes. That's it for me. I'm Head of the Grave. Welcome to town, everyone.